Let's take a look at some miniatures. Hello and welcome to the Miniatures Cabinet. This is the second episode of my long-term painting log video series thing. Now, I haven't as yet had any feedback from the first episode of the Miniatures Cabinet, and that is because this is being filmed before the first episode has even been released. That is an error on my part. However, I do still want some feedback, so definitely let me know if you have any comments or things you would like me to know about. As usual, we're going to take a look at 5 different miniatures I've painted recently and tell you a little story to go along with them. So let's jump in and have a look. So first up today in the painting log is this C100 Imperial Space Marine. And this one, I believe, was referred to as Marine in guard pose. I guess that's because he's holding his weapon straight up. The C100 Marines were released just before Rogue Trader came out. I'm not sure how long or how much before, maybe a few months, but it might have been a few weeks. I'm sure there's some experts out there who will let us know. In keeping with the retro theme of this miniature, I've decided to paint it as a Crimson Fist, and I think if I get any more of these old Hammer models, they will also all be painted as Crimson Fists. Unless that is, they're not actually Space Marines. I was tempted to do some old style Legion of the Damned, but I do have a problem with painting black Space Marine armour. Old Hammer is a thing that I'm really enjoying at the moment. I'm not sure if it's because I like the aesthetics of the era or if it's just because that's the era I grew up with. There's definitely some bias, I think, going on there somewhere. Nostalgia is a big thing these days. Now, I did try a little bit of freehanding on this because I thought maybe I should try that, as freehanding is a little more old school than the decals of today. And the only few things I tried to freehand here was the shoulder pad markings, such as the Crimson Fist logo on that tiny yellow circle. That was quite difficult. And those tactical arrows where I had to paint 2 straight white lines. I have to admit, that was not easy. I also decided to give it a Goblin Green era appropriate base. I didn't actually have Goblin Green paint, so I had to use Vallejo model colour light green. All in all, I'm actually very happy with how this turned out. On the table it looks really nice. I do understand that zoomed in can look a little messy. Up next is a Sorceress from the Talisman board game. Now, Talisman is a game we've played a few times over the years. I've purchased it and resold it and purchased it maybe 2 or 3 times due to my own stupidity, as I always think it's a boring game after a while. Then you meet a new group of friends and you think maybe they would like to play Talisman. Anyway, this time I thought I would actually paint some of the miniatures, and what I definitely noticed when painting these miniatures is that they are very small. Now, this is a Sorceress, as I said before. She has her own card in the game. She is her own specific character, and one of her special abilities is she gets to start the game with 1 spell, and she also is able to beguile other characters. And when you beguile someone, you get to take their stuff. On this miniature, I tried to paint some sort of faux cobblestone base. I don't know if you can really see it very well here, but yes, it was quite interesting to paint. None of that is actually moulded. That base is just a completely flat area, so I kind of had to freehand the cobblestones on and try to give them some texture with my brush. It felt a bit strange doing it. It looked a little bit unnatural, but then again, this is Talisman, so who cares? Some of the details on this miniature were very, very hard to paint. That little skull-topped staff was very difficult to paint. It has 2 little feathers sticking out of the top, and on the artwork it's really obvious what they are, but obviously in tiny miniature form, it really was quite difficult. But I think we got there in the end. Again, at arm's length on the board, this miniature looks fine, I think. They're also quite quick to do, being so small, so we can whiz through this whole set quite quickly, I believe. Next up, we have yet another of the miniatures from the Talisman board game, and this time it's the Ghoul. Sadly, the Ghoul is a character no one ever seems to really want to be. Maybe it's because he looks like he has a cone head, maybe it's because he looks like a poor man's orc, or maybe it's because he's wearing a Hessian sack. Speaking of orcs, I did copy my old orc Rogue Trader skin tone to paint this guy, which was quite fun. I always use a lot of yellow and use mainly the green for the shading colours. It really is bright and punchy on the table, which is nice to look at. A lot of the orcs nowadays are painted quite dark. I have to admit, myself, I'm not much of a fan of that. I like the older look. I like the bright green. One thing I have noticed looking at this zoomed in footage is that he has a terribly large mould line going down his leg, which almost looks like a big brush hair which has adhered itself to it. And he has the poorest lips known to man, painted by myself. They do look absolutely atrocious. But again, like I say, these miniatures are very small, so on the table, hopefully no one's ever going to notice those. There is another amusing little thing on this miniature, and that is the base. It has a gravestone, which is quite obvious what that is, but perched up next to it is what is supposed to be a skull. And when you're actually painting this, it is literally just a ball with 2 pinpricks in it to give the illusion of eye sockets. This was quite difficult to paint and sell as a skull. When it comes to the game, playing as the Ghoul, there's not really much to say about him, other than you get to raise enemies you've killed from the dead and keep them as followers instead of trophies. And had I noticed this before, then I would probably realise that this is actually quite a good ability. And next time, I think I might like to be the Ghoul, you know. So recently I acquired this Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring miniature boxed set known as BME1. And interestingly, if you take a look at the little Union Jack logo at the bottom, just underneath it, it says, if you're enjoying this video, then please like it and consider subscribing to the channel. That means you, Jessica. If you are enjoying the content here on the channel, then please consider joining the Patreon, the link to which is in the description below or up here somewhere. Next up, we have a couple of bases of Tyranid Ripper swarms. And I say a couple, it's because these are the only Ripper miniatures I had. When I was doing my Gene Stealer Cult project, I thought I would paint absolutely everything I had. And in the bottom of the bits box, there was a few of these Rippers, so obviously they had to be based and painted as well as part of that project. These were a really quick little project. All these were was a quick braille. What even is a braille? These were a quick dry brush up through the blues with some washes and just a few details painted in, such as the teeth and the tongues. Now, amusingly, I realised when I'd painted these is that I had missed a huge part out. In my Gene Stealers, I always painted all the fleshy bits a pink colour, and now looking at these, I realise that their tails should, in my opinion, have been classed as one of the fleshy bits. So maybe I should go back and repaint that part pink, or maybe I should ignore it. Who knows? I think one of the things that I like about the Ripper Swarms is they remind me of the old Squig Swarm bases. Now that is going back a fair bit, but although there were Orc Squigs, I don't know if my brain is misremembering this. I don't know if this is the Mandela effect going on, or was there a swarm of Tyranid Squigs? I'm sure there were. I'm sure one looked like a banana. I'm sure there was one with like long spindly legs. I may be wrong. I might have to dig further into this to see if my mind is playing tricks on me. Also, I decided to use Necromade. I don't know why I can't speak properly today. I decided to use Necromunda bases for this project, as I thought a sort of space hulky theme would be good for the basing. Fifth in the painting log today is a pair of Orc fighter bombers from the Aeronautica Imperialis game. Now, these Orc fighter bombers I got in the starter set, the first one which came out, was it last summer or the summer before? It might even be well before that. It might have been pre-COVID. My word, I've had these things a while. And at the time, I thought I was going to get every miniature and paint them all up as part of one huge set. And I have to admit, that's not going to be happening anymore. Now, when it came to picking a scheme for my Orc planes, I took a little while. I had a look at various different reference material. I looked at genuine military plane colour schemes. I had a look at like racing cars and things like that. And then I found a scheme from the old Area 88 Super Nintendo video game. Now, 10 internet cookies, if you can remember that. That was based on an old anime of the same name. And over here, I think they changed the name from Area 88 to UN Squadron. If you haven't played that, I really would recommend going in and giving that a try. That was an awesome game back in the day. And after I finish this video, I might need to go and give that another go. This was a really quick scheme to paint. I literally just airbrushed them grey, put some masking, it wasn't masking tape, was it? I put some blue tack on it and then sprayed in the purple, did a few highlights, and originally I was going to give them a gloss varnish and an oil wash, but I didn't decide to do that. I couldn't be bothered because I was lazy at the time. I was losing interest in the Orc side of things, so I decided to just thin down some Nuln Oil and just brush it all over. Now, saying that, it might have even just been black paint. Anyway, they didn't come out too messy. They actually look alright, I think. So I'm not too worried about that. I think my favourite part of these Orc aeroplanes is the little dome ball turrets on the back. I think they're really cool. So they were today's 5 miniatures on the miniatures cabinet. What did you think of those? What did you like about those miniatures, and what did you dislike about those miniatures? When I say miniatures, I'm really talking about the completed paint schemes on them. Would you like to see any changes made to the formats of these videos? There are some more to come. If you want to see some more miniatures cabinet videos, and I hope you do, then check out the playlist up here somewhere. As always, thank you very much for watching, and always remember to drill your barrels.